be as multidimensional as possible. And the more multidimensional we are, the more visible we are.
Can you give me an example of what you mean by being multidimensional?
Multidimensional means understanding that white culture has done good for us too. And that, but then we do not want to throw away the white culture, because right now we dress in a European way.
Yes, sir.
All right? I like the way I'm dressed. However, when I decide to wear an African attire, I don't want you to think it's a nightgown or a bed sheet. You know what I'm saying? I want you to respect it too. So I believe in looking at all sides of the coin. You know, I'm not an Afrocentrist or Afrocentrist, because that's also narrow. You know what I'm saying? That's, racial egocentrism. I don't believe in that. I believe in, understanding that involves human valuing, That's what I mean by seeing all the other sides of the coin. And it's like it takes a village to raise a child. You want to involve, you want to see all the sides of the coin. Everybody is important. Everybody can contribute to the equation.
You know, as I hear you talk about the egocentrism of Afrocentricity, my understanding of folks that subscribe to Afrocentricity is that if we want people to be at a certain level in their thinking, then this is something that we need to purport and teach. But in a way that is, well, I would think, in a way that includes everyone.
Sure.
And so how do you respond to that?
Well, I'm not anti-Afrocentrism, but I don't believe on its own we should think is a be-all and end-all. I know that civilization started in Africa, but I think the Europeans have done something good too for us. And Africans have done something good for the world. We need to value what Africans do too.
Yes.
We need to value what Asians have done. We need to value what Latinos have done. We need to value what Europeans have done. But we need to value what everyone has done. That's what I mean by multidimensionality of thinking.
Thank you. I want to make sure that the audience does not miss the fact that also Dr. Obiakor did not mention that he's here to also work with the School of Education in his preparation for reaffirmation. I think it's important that we state that as well.
Sure. I'm also here for that. One of the presentations I'm going to be talking about focus on my vision of special education for the 21st century.
And this you're going to be doing with students and faculty?
Sure,
right?
I'm going to be doing it with students and faculty. I'm also going to be doing a session, maybe a question and answer session about writing, publishing, writing and publishing, and flourishing and making a difference. We just have a new book out, and that just came out last week, as a matter of fact, and I brought it here to share with your faculty and graduate students about writing and flourishing. This book we did in 1998. We now have the second edition, 2010, so we're excited about the book.
Okay, beautiful. If you will, and this is not to embellish, but how would you, in terms of some of the books that you've written, are there books that stand out in your mind as making you feel has made the most impact in the field of special education or in the field of exceptional education, multicultural education, whatever it might be? Basically, to what degree has that book or groups of books impacted how we prepare teachers, counselors, administrators, that kind of thing, for the P12 setting? Yeah,
that's really a very wonderful book. The book I did that has continued to make a difference is the book It Even Happens in Good Schools.
Okay.
I moved to a new location, and my kids were experiencing the worst kind of racism.
Doc, I'm going to actually have you to hold on. We have to stop for just a minute, but we'll be right back for our last segment of Dialogue. Welcome back to Dialogue. I am Sean Warner, the Dean of the School of Education, And I'm here with our last segment with Dr. Festus E. Obiakor. And he was making a point about what he believes was the most impactful, if you will, book that he's put out to date. And I wanted him to continue sharing with me what he was saying. Doc?
Yeah, like I was saying, I think, so my kids were experiencing the kind of racism that totally disturbed me. So I talked to my friend about it, and he said, it even happens in good schools. I said, you say what? Repeat that again? I said, say it slowly. He said, it even happens in good schools. I wrote it down, and that book is used in many, many areas. I've written so many books, some landmark books. I wrote the first African American and Exceptionalities book in the nation. I wrote the second one too. Most of my books have made it because they're all landmark works. So they've all made a difference. But some of them you think will make a big difference, but they don't do good as you thought. But some, it even happens in good school. I just thought, and the one I have now is the book of Proverbs, 100 Multicultural Proverbs. It's doing very, very well. Yet, I didn't even know how the school leaders will be using it. I get calls from white school lead superintendents asking me what was in your brain when you wrote it. You know, it sounds like a biblical book and so on. So, but whether the book is relevant or not, that's not really the issue. The fact remains that any book I am involved in has my voice. You can disagree with my voice, but you see, you could not take it away from me.
That's interesting. And actually, it's eternal, because once it's written down and once it's published, that's it.
Yeah, it's published.
Doc, if you will, in our last few minutes, tell us what your vision is, or how your vision is I guess, morphing or developing around what teacher education programs need to be able to do in the 21st century.
Yeah, from my perspective, teacher education program has done some good in maintaining the tradition. But teacher education program, some were struggling between the past and the present and the future. So we need to understand that the paradigms have shifted. The powers have shifted. And we must learn to educate our children in a culturally sensitive manner. We need to start rewarding teachers who are good. That's why I do not believe that I believe that we need more teachers from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, for example, African American teachers. But just being an African American teacher is not enough for me. You have to be knowledgeable. You have to be culturally sensitive. So I think what I see in teacher education program is that it's like preparing somebody to do a 100 meters race, while also you use a gun and shoot the feet of the individual who is supposed to do the race. So on the one hand, you're preparing them to race, and on the other hand, you're shooting the two legs so that they cannot run. So we're not thoroughly preparing teachers.
Right. And is it just not teachers we're talking about? Are we talking about principals, counselors, all the above?
General and special education teachers, leaders, school leaders, counselors, and so on. You know, the instruments we use to measure individuals are culturally biased. And why do we continue to use the same kind of measurement tool? Those are issues we're going to be struggling with in the future. Then we need to start respecting teachers. We need to start respecting the profession, because teachers teach lawyers, they teach doctors, they teach counselors, they teach whoever. So the teaching profession, maybe my vision is that it will, in the future, it will have its respect as a profession. And as a profession, it will monitor itself, self-analyze itself, and be involved in goal-directed decisions that will help it map out its own future.
It's interesting. One of the things that I thought, once we saw accountability being infused more into teacher education programs, that I initially have a business background, and whenever you hear accountability, you also think of money or incentives, or an incentive type program where people are valued on a certain scale and paid more, paid less, or rewarded more, rewarded or punished or rewarded less based on how they perform. And it's interesting because I'm not sure that I've seen that in the field. And so some of what you're saying, I think, is poignant. I wonder, this valuing, with valuing teachers, is there sort of a financial, economic piece that's tied to that?
Yeah, money is tied to it, because you need money to pay good teachers, to recruit good teachers, right? However, money is not the only means to the end. If you look at Kansas, they had new buildings, new computers, but the scores were still down. Now they're closing majority of the schools. So you need teachers who believe in effective instruction. Think about it. We need teachers who are knowledgeable. We need teachers who can modify instruction. We need teachers who can supplement instruction. We need teachers who are creative, who are problem solvers. We don't need robots. We need teachers who can use their brains and their minds, who have what Dr. Asa Hilliard called real pedagogical power. We need teachers with real pedagogical power, who believe that every child's potential should be maximized to the fullest.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Asa's work, and he espouses something that I've been espousing in a different way, which is training teachers, counselors, school leaders for mastery, not for proficiency.
Sure.
And so, as we close, Doc, what are some lasting impressions that you want to leave on a listening and viewing audience in the Atlanta metro area, and more importantly, my students and faculty in the School of Education here at Clark Atlanta University?
Yeah, I want you to know that we are here to support in any way that we can. What does it profit a man or woman to gain the whole world and suffer the loss of his or her own soul? We must be productive. We must work as a team. We must understand, again, that it takes a whole village to raise a child.
Thank you. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Festus E. Obiakor, with his last thoughts that he's leaving with us. He will be here for 2 days, March 25th and 26th, to work with the School of Education and also do the keynote at the Pearly C. Dove Colloquium that, as I've mentioned in the past, the community is all invited to. I am Sean Warner, your host, the Dean of the School of Education, and we look forward to seeing you again here on Dialogue.